Hello, hello. Welcome to Monday Mentor. I'm Jen Whitmer, and I help teams and leaders solve conflict, cultivate communication, and create empowered teams so everybody can do connected and powerful work. And today's Monday Mentor, friends, I'm really excited for you to meet her. Julie Ellis is a business owner and an author and a coach and a speaker, and she has written a great book called Big Gorgeous Goals, which you can get right here. And she is coming to talk to us today about how goals change us. You are in for a treat. I'm super excited to welcome Julie.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. I'm so glad that you could join us today. It's really lovely to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yes. If you are watching live, let us know that you're live in the comments. If you are catching the replay, we can come back and answer those comments as well. No problem, because we've got a really big topic today. Before we jump into goals and goal setting, which y'all, it's not going to be the conversation you think, so stick around. I want to ask Julie, let me know a little bit about how you got here. You started this amazing company called Mabel's Labels, and now you are talking about goal setting and leading. So tell us how you arrived at this place.
Well, I feel like I've always had a quirky and eclectic path in my career. And so arriving somewhere a little bit unexpected has just been part of my journey. But what I realized after I left Mabel's Labels and I struggled because we had climbed for 12 years to get the word out, grow the business, and keep going for more and more and more. And when I left after we were acquired, I found myself on a plateau and quite frankly didn't know what to do with it.
Mm.
Became a little unsure of how to get off, wrestled with the intersection of grieving the business that I had left and the gratitude of achieving that entrepreneurial dream and sort of being unable to figure out how they fit together. And
Mm.
so I got a little stuck. And as I got unstuck and went to train to become a coach and realized I wanted to build something else for myself, I started telling the story. And as I started telling the story, I was really surprised by what I got back from people who were hearing it. And it really then started to inform, how the book shaped up. Like there's stories of 16 other women in the book. So, although it's about what happened to me, it's also about like, why do people do these big, amazing things? And it's a bit of a highlight reel, right? Like, let's face it, when you see somebody achieve something amazing, you're not seeing all the blood, sweat, and tears that they put in, to get there. You're seeing your perceived, oh, they're an overnight success. It might have taken a decade, but
Right, right. And I really appreciate that you mention this bittersweet nature of feeling gratitude for having built an amazing business that you got to sell that is still popular today, but also grieving the loss of that work. I think we often find ourselves in that space and we don't know what to do with these two disparate
Mhm.
emotions. That can be really challenging. And just you sharing your story really helps people know, first of all, that's just normal.
Yes,
And that's part of the non-highlight reel. We can get unstuck from that. That's
yes,
really valuable. So
yeah.
before we, talk about how goals can change us, I would love for you to frame up what you mean by a goal. There's lots of like I've got a goal to I don't actually have a goal to run a 5K, but like we've got a goal to run a 5K.
But somewhere
I've got
on
a
the list.
I've got a goal to run a Fortune 500 business. I've got a goal to have a great family. Like there's all these
Right,
words around goal setting. And I think there's a lot of shame associated with goal setting because we're like, ooh, what if I don't achieve that goal? Then I'm not good.
right,
So let's just talk about
right,
what is a goal and the way that you are thinking about a goal.
right. So the way I think about a goal is not a to-do list goal or something that you check the box on and sort of cross off a list. I'm actually talking about goals that you might not achieve. Or as
Mm,
you come to the end of them, they might look quite different than what you thought you were going for in the beginning. Because they're the things that are like, um, they're in the fog a little bit, right? Like, there's something big, there's something to what you want, but you have a missing component. So, is it a network? Is it money? Is it knowledge? Like, what is the component that's missing? I feel like that's one, big important part. And it has to feel intimidating and, quite frankly, like something you probably have no business wanting, but you do. Uh, and I think they're just, one of the dictionary definitions for gorgeous is magnificent. And
Mm.
these are just about things. So the goals themselves are magnificent, but they're also about us stepping into our magnificence as women and really doing things that, make us the best we can be in the world.
Talk to me a little bit about that concept of I have no business wanting this. I think I know I have experienced that, especially as a speaker. I have no business
Mhm.
wanting to step onto the stage
Right.
and command a room of thousands of people. Who am I to want that? And I think there are other people that have that feeling of, I have no business wanting that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's an imposter syndrome piece attached to that for sure, right? A
Mhm.
confidence in our own selves piece to some degree. And, it's like that idea of, if all you ever do is achieve everything you want, then you're probably playing it too safe, right? So
Mm.
it's about pushing the edges of safety and getting outside of them and really growing ourselves. And so, yeah, standing on the big stage, like, it scares the heck out of you. You're not sure what you want to do with it, but it's where you want to go, right? And for me, like, a big gorgeous goal is getting this thought leadership out into the world, like getting these ideas about goal setting out into the world and trying to shift people's mindset. And I didn't really have a clear idea of how I was going to do that when I started, before the workshop, before the book, before the keynote. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And so it's that thing of, like, who wants to listen to me anyway, right? Like, and but ultimately, somebody else will say something, similar, or go down a path of doing some of the kind of work I want to do. And I'll be like, why not me?
Mm.
Why not me right now? Like, I don't think maybe I don't think I'm the best person, but I don't think I'm the worst person either to stand on, up and talk about this stuff. And I think, so why not me?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I have kind of picked up along the way, I can't say, oh, I learned it from this one person, but the idea that if you keep getting this idea, like if this idea sits with you and it sparks you a little bit, scares you a little bit, that I think that's something to really pay attention to. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean you're going to go become an entrepreneur or jump out, but like even in your organization, if you're like, oh, this idea keeps coming back to me, or this type of role, like, why not me as the vice president or the CMO officer? Like, why not
Yeah.
me? If there's something about it that to pay attention to. I think what you said at the beginning that's so helpful is it might not look the way you thought at the end, but at least it's something to think about, like, ooh, this scares me a little bit.
Right.
And that makes it worth working for.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear you. I'm really curious about this idea about how stepping into your magnificence changes us. How does a goal change us? Because we think about a goal as like, I'm going to arrive, but that's not
Mhm.
exactly what you're saying. So how does a goal change us and help us step into that magnificence?
Well, I think if you think about any goal, you never actually arrive. If you set
Mm.
a goal to make $100,000, you're going to make, 99 or 105. You're probably never going to, like, actually make 100, right? And
I
so
never
that's
thought about
kind
it
of
like that.
right.
Yeah.
That's kind of where these ideas germinate with me, is around, we get so focused on getting to a place and checking a box, but maybe you were meant to end up over here, and maybe that's actually the better place to end up. And so we
Mhm.
have to let go of being focused on a destination. We need to be
Mm.
focused on the journey of getting there and how we grow during that journey, and the things that we need to put around us in order to keep going on the journey.
I love
um
that.
yeah.
One of the components that I work through in my Catalyst Leadership Lab is mystery. We talk a little bit
Mhm.
about mystery because we focus so much on this is the exact goal. And while absolutely there is some science about some, specific goals and achieving them along the way, but this aspect of magnificence and stepping into it, it might not be what you thought. In the habits of a conscientious leader, there's an element that we talk about that is that the world is benevolent toward us, and there's a mystery to that. But that changes us because it's the journey, as you said, that gets us to where we're going. Like
Yeah.
when we're so focused on I have to get to this one place, I think we miss actually what makes us more peaceful and happy. And I feel like that's what
Yes.
you're saying.
It is. It is. I agree with that. And I do think that once you've got that big, magnificent thing that you just want to chase, the building block type of goals are important, you know, motion getters. Like you need that
Mhm.
momentum, right? And you need to start, figuring out, okay, so now I'm going to, I want to I'm climbing this big hill and I need to get the first, tenth of the way. So what are the things I need to do? And you start putting goals together. And then you need to have a moment where you're like, okay, I've come this far. Here's where I'm going. Has that changed at all? What do I need to recalibrate? Right. It's an
Right.
important part of that process is the recalibration.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just talking with somebody before we got on in a call, and that it doesn't always look the way you think at the end. Like keep going because it shifts and changes. And because she was saying, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing for the next 15 years. And I was like, that may be great. And you may find actually I don't want to do this anymore. And that
Yeah.
there's no shame in the shift.
Yes.
Like the shift
Yes.
happens, and that's really important to address because seasons change, life change, circumstances change, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to, I think there's probably some people who are watching that feel like that goal feels really scary. Like I know how to set a goal that I want a meal plan this week, but I don't know how to set the goal that feels scary because even setting that or thinking about it feels scary. How do we start dreaming about that big goal?
I think one of the important components about that is to clear some space in our calendar and
Mm,
to, thoughtfully take off our busy badge about all the things we do and open some space in the calendar. And that was a really hard realization for me because I am somebody who really like I value myself on, my inbox is caught up, my to-do list is getting crossed off, like that productivity sort of metric. And I also find it really hard when I lose some of those structures around how I keep myself productive, right? I'm putting white space in my calendar to have like, walk in nature or, sit and read some articles or do some searching on the internet for things. Like all of that I find really hard to swallow as valuable. That was one of
yes.
the sort of shifts that I had to make as I went, through the process of really figuring out how to like get out of the sort of small thinking that I was stuck in and really, really get back in touch with what my dreams were for myself and where I wanted to go.
Oh, I am forever going to use busy badge, and I will quote you. My friend Julie says busy badge. Put it down. It's so good. But I think oftentimes when I suggest similar things to people, that you have to have space and it has to be regular, like you have to plan for it. We struggle with that productivity. People are like, but that doesn't feel like I'm getting anything done,
Yes.
and that emotion comes up in us, and I'm like, because we attach worth to productivity, and like disconnecting that and allowing yourself some time to dream is
Yeah,
actually the wonderful use of wonder. Like, oh, I
it is.
wonder what could happen.
Yes.
But we can't wonder when we don't create that space. And
Yes.
I love that advice. I love that advice. And forever the busy badge. It's so good. Like put down your busy badge. Yeah,
Well, and
because
like most things, right? Like some people need to make like they need like 2 hours at the end of the day where or they need 2 hours in the morning because that's actually where they're more creative. Like, first of all, figure that out. Then
yeah,
figure out like if I were to give myself 30 minutes in my calendar, I would probably fritter it away by making a cup of tea, checking my inbox, maybe going on my social media. Whereas I need to do that like 90-minute block where I leave my office, I close down, I leave my phone behind, and I go,
Mhm.
where I can really think. And
Mhm.
so you've got to figure out what works for you. Like maybe you're just scheduling half-hour blocks and you can sit down and sort of put your thoughts out on paper. Like I always used to say before I kind of did this kind of work, before I had all of these ideas, I used to love going on an airplane because there is
Mhm.
nothing better than sitting by the window and looking at the sky and watching the sun rise or set or what the clouds look like that day. And I used to get a lot of inspiration from that, but I didn't ever attach that in a structured way, right? So now it's
Mm.
figuring out if I'm going on an airplane, I'm making sure there's a blank notebook and, I've downloaded some kind of like very Zen music that I can listen to while I kind of gaze and make some notes. And so it's learning how you make it work for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think the learning about how you learn is such a powerful tool, but then that
Yes.
process of implementation. Like, oh,
Yes.
like you said, I know when I'm on an airplane, I have a notebook or whatever, the Zen music downloaded because I didn't want to pay for the Wi-Fi, or
Yep.
whatever that's on the plane. That's just excellent reminders that we've got to do both components. Otherwise, we lose things sometimes.
Yeah.
My first career was as a music teacher, but I was a vocal music teacher. And I always said I was proficient at the piano because I passed my university proficiency exam. Uh, and so I stopped playing after a while. But recently,
Mhm.
that has been a hobby that's been really fun to me. I just have a post-it
Mhm.
note that's next to it because as I'm just playing and practicing in a different way, different ideas come or stories come, and getting that down has been really helpful. So me and my post-it notes, if anybody's been around here for a while, they're like, oh, right, Jen has a post-it. And so that's just such good advice to know, is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? Is it long blocks? Is it small? And then figure out a way to bring it together. It's such helpful advice for any type of creative inspiration work. And I'm looking at the time again. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to end. I want to keep talking. There's so many more pieces of wisdom that Julie has in her book, Big Gorgeous Goals. You can get it here. But tell the people where to find you and how to keep following this thought leadership about how goals can really change us.
You can find me at biggorgeousgoals.com or on LinkedIn at Julie-Ellis.
I love it. I love it. So we're so glad that you're here. Julie posts really great things on LinkedIn. She's a great follow. Highly recommend. Thanks again for being here. I'm so grateful for your time. We are here every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we have a local to me, St. Louisan, who has changed culture. Her name's Jana Gregoric, and she will be here to talk about how do you change a culture and how do you build culture in an organization. So make sure you tune in for that next week. Follow Julie, go grab her book, and hopefully you're going to have some fun tonight for Halloween and dress
Yes.
up well. Julie, thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely. Oh, so glad that you're here. Bye, everybody.